Welcome to Angels at Essex. This is the University of Essex University Enterprise Zone. And today's webinar on investment readiness is how to manage investors on our Delio-driven equity investment platform. Now, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for today, which is Bhumi Ladva from Delio. And as I said, Delio manage our equity investment platform for us and provide us with the full FCA compliance that we require. And whilst we've been using the platform for nearly a year now, we have noticed that a lot of our entrepreneurs actually struggle when dealing with their investors. And I would like Bhumi to actually explain to you why this is so. So Bhumi, would you like to take over, please?
Thank you so much, John. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out today to join us for this webinar. So the initial agenda is I'm going to recap one of the previous sessions on how actually investors view your deal and the type of information that is presented to them. And then I will go into a deep dive into some of the more communicative features on the platform, which allows the investors to actually indicate investment amounts and ask questions and so on. And then I will show you how you can actually manage them through the journey of their investment, both online and offline investors. And then we can take Q&As and I'll show you the resource library as well. Okay, so I am currently logged in as an investor. This is something that often you as entrepreneurs, you don't see this end, but the way you can see how your deal is displayed is something I will show you in a moment. But essentially, when the investor logs in, they'll be able to see your deal published. If it's a recently published deal, this often changes and it is chosen by the University of Essex, which ones they have on their homepage. But then investors are able to go into the browse deal section here. They can search and filter by certain key information, or they can scroll through the deals available to them. I'm just going to take this deal as an example. So as I mentioned, in terms of the deal content itself, we had a thorough session of what to include and what we recommend you include for the investors to see on the deal. You can see that there's multiple different tabs added here. If you wish to recap this will be in the resource library within the platform. But essentially, I wanted to focus on a few tabs for now. So the first one is documentation. As a part of uploading your deal, you would have been asked to actually upload some deal information, which is readily available for all investors to see. And these tend to be your pitch decks, any immediate business plans you want investors to see, and so on. And I'll be able to see any of those documentations as well as any NDAs uploaded in this section here. I will go back to this in a moment, but I just want to quickly go through the Q&A. If an investor has any questions that they want to ask immediately, they can post it through here, and this will be submitted to the deal owners, so to the entrepreneurs, and you'll be able to see this and actually reply to them straightly from that specific deal. Again, I will switch my screen over to show you exactly where this will show on your side of the platform. But I just want to show it from the investor's view so you can actually see what types of functionality they have and what they see. And we also have a provide feedback button. Often this is used by a lot of investors to provide you information on improvements on your deal if they've got any specific questions. Maybe they've missed the Q&A tab. So we try to enable maximum ability for the investor to essentially ask you questions or give feedback. Once the initial investor has been through all this information, they can click on the request for more information button. What you'll see now is me as the investor. I have not actually signed the NDA, which you can either request for an electronic signature or you can actually request for a wet ink signature from your investor. That gives them the ability to download the document, sign it, and then re-upload it back into the same space. But essentially this stage will, of course, if you don't have any NDAs, then this notification won't happen. So I just want to go back and show you how the investor can sign this. They can download this template by just clicking into it. And then you can electronically sign it. So I am just going to do this. generate my own signature, you can if you are artistic. How the investor will add their own signature here. And I'm going to click, let's move this panel over there, and I'm going to click on the continue button. We do, for the investors, have another stage of security, which is essentially just reiterating your password. So I'm going to do that. Complete. Have I remembered my password? Okay, yes, I have. So the investor can then download that they've signed this, or they can download that later. But essentially, now that I've done this, I can go back, I can request for more information, and the first thing the investor will see is this investment pipeline. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to flip over to the entrepreneur side. But before I do that, is there any questions on how the initial engagement happens with the investors on the platform? Okay, so I've now logged in as the entrepreneur. And as I mentioned, I can go into my deals and see kind of the deals that I want to be publishing to University of Essex for approval. I'm just going to click into this one. Just a quick step back, in order for your deal to be published on the University of Essex platform, it will need to go through an approval process. So initially, when you come into the platform, you'll go through an add deal process. Again, all of this is explained in the webinar that was hosted previously, but it goes through a step-by-step guide on what information you need. When you are happy with all the information, you will then, in this section here, be asked to actually push for approval and submit that deal to University of Essex. They will then take a look. It will go through whatever their screening and workflow approval process is, and then you'll be notified when your deal has been published to investors. You can see that this deal has been published. You've got a little notification here which says that, and actually all the key information is now locked. So you'll see this lock appear. And that means that because your deal is in front of the investor's eyes, we don't want to be changing that sort of information. So if you do wish to actually change any of that, we need to actually take it back into a draft state by clicking on the restart approval button and then actually resubmitting it for approval. Okay, right. So Bimi, as the investor, had requested to actually before I go into that, let me just go into question Q&A. You'll be notified when an investor has asked a question. So I'll go into the Q&A tab here. And the question will appear like this. All questions asked by the investors are for you to see, as well as University of Essex team. It will not be seen by any other investors. If you do wish to showcase your answers in an anonymized way, often our entrepreneurs like to create a custom tab to perhaps say FAQs, and then they anonymize the data and add that as a tab there. Just to kind of answer a few common questions that investors might have. So I can answer this question, so answer here. And that will go straight through to the investor, and they'll be able to see that when they go onto the deal in that Q&A tab. Now, if I go back and I click actually into these notifications, you'll see that I have a few notifications here. I've got that the investor has become interested. I also have the fact that they signed the NDA. So to get that information, you can either click into the notification, or I'm on the deal here already. So you'll see that Delio Test Investor has requested for more information. So at this stage, you might want to actually email this investor, or you might want to contact them to have a discussion. As you know, investors love to have a chat with entrepreneurs to see what they're about, to actually build the trust for them in order for them to actually invest in you. So one way in which you could do that is actually, if you click on this little eye, you'll see that their email address will appear here, and you'll be able to email them and then have those conversations offline. The email address is always present on the different stages of the deal. So for example, if I click here, you'll see which investor is at this stage. If I was to click here, you'll see the email addresses of those at that stage as well. So yeah, you can get their email address by clicking on the little I button of each stage. What you'll see here now is the investment pipeline that has been started by the Delio investor. I've now contacted them and I want to actually release more information to them. So as a part of the document management system, you will have the ability to not only upload initial deal information readily available for all investors to see, but you'll also be able to upload your NDA as we saw before, and then confidential documents and completion documents as well. Those documentations that you upload will relate to each of these stages on the investment journey here. After I've approved the investor, so I'm going to say I do want to approve this. I've had a chat with them. I can obviously, there's a notes section which I'll go into too, where you can make notes. And I can approve this investor to go into the next stage. This then releases the next stage of information. Now I'm going to flip my screen over just so I can show you what the investor now sees. So I've just refreshing my screen. Of course, you're never going to be both the investor and the entrepreneur, so you won't have to do this. But again, the investor is notified that they've been approved, and actually new confidential document has been made available to them. You can click into the notification, but also you can see that they've been moved along on the investment process, and they can actually, from now, we previously only saw deal information NDA. Now we can release further information to them, which might be confidential, might be investor specific, and so on. So that is the way that you can actually get more information out to your investor from the portal, instead of actually, once you've had the conversation with them, asking them to essentially be like, oh, I'm going to email you these documentations. Instead, you could just move them along the next step, and that documentation email will be sent to them automatically. As the investor goes through this process, there's this can continue where the investor will click on kind of indicate investment amount. They can indicate that you will then approve it, and more documents will be released, such as completion documents. So that can work. But the other way that you can also do it is actually push them through the process as and when you have conversations. So when it comes to the point of, let's say, indicating investment amount, let's say after you've released the confidential documents, you then have another call with your investor. Again, they can book a meeting with you through the Calendary tab here, or they can ask questions. Those are always available for the investors. But essentially, if you have a phone call with them and they tell you they're interested in the deal and they wish to invest £10,000, for example, as the entrepreneur, you don't want to really be telling them, can you please log back into the platform, indicate your investment amount, and then I'll release more documents to you. What you can actually do, again, I'm going to switch over to the entrepreneur screen. So what I can do is I can actually put in that investment amount for them. So here, I'm going to actually do this on behalf of the investor. And I can then move them on to any stage I want of the process, such as even before this, if you want to actually move them straight to indicate an investment amount, then you can do so as well. So the tool essentially gives you flexibility of either moving the investor along the process to whichever stage is applicable for them, and it will automatically release emails and so on. But you also kind of have different stages where you can actually allow the investor to actually act upon certain things, such as, right, I have now read the confidential documents, and I will now want to commit the investment amount. So it's either or, but you have both options. Once an investor has gone through the entire process, you can see that these transaction management journey updates here, and they will also update for the investor. So at all times, they know exactly what stage they are at, and you will always be notified via email and on-platform notifications of the actual different actions that are required. When it comes to actually changing any of the information, What you can do is you can change the investment amount. If there's a withdrawal investment, you want to change the dates, you basically just fill out this form, select which one it is, and confirm. You will need to get this approved by University of Essex, so they might have to do this on behalf of you. And that leads me nicely onto this notes section here. Any investors who use that provide feedback button, their feedback will appear here. So you can actually see that and then go and actually contact them and answer their questions that way. But also if you wish to actually, and this is only seen by yourselves again, if you want to actually ask a question to the University of Essex team, you can actually click that add note here and you'll see, can I please change, this investor's commitment amount and so on, and you can communicate with them via this section. There's a full audit trail that you can view of when things happen, how you moved investors along, who they were moved by. So even if you asked University of Essex to move a certain investor along, then you'll be able to see who actioned it and what investor it was and so on. The other thing that I want to move on to now is actually off-platform investors. So we've spoken about how on-platform investors can either interact with the deal and go through this investment pipeline step by step, or you can move them along to certain stages without them having any actions. But that was all online investors. The other thing that the platform will allow you to do is actually log your offline investors. So when it comes to family and friends investing, or your first seed round was done by X company or so on, and then not a part of the platform, but you actually want to use the tool to kind of get a holistic view of everything that's happening with your platform, both on and off, then you can click on this add investor button. And this will be restricted because you won't be able to see all the investors on the platform. But what you can do is actually click someone off platform. I can add the person's name, and I can add the date that they invested. And essentially what this does is it allows you to create their investment pipeline on the platform. You can, of course, be speaking to them elsewhere and actually moving them along, storing all the documents in there, which I'll go into in a second. But essentially, it just allows you to track and manage both your online investors and offline investors in the exact same way under your specific deal on the platform. With offline investors as well, if you wish to actually invite them onto the platform, then that is something that you will have to, you can either put it in the notes and the team will, you can just let the team know that you've done that, or you can actually just request the University of Essex team to invite that specific investor. However, I'm sure John and his team will want to probably approve that investor, and that investor will go through a specific onboarding compliance to make sure that they're FCA regulated to be able to see the opportunities via the University of Essex platform. So yeah, I think Josh, if you want to add the email address into the chat, which they need to email, or maybe we can add it to the resource library or something like that a little later on. Going into documentation. So we went through a majority of these, but the one that I didn't go through is an investor folder. So the platform allows you to actually create custom folders, which can be shared specifically with University of Essex, or you can keep them kind of internal. So if there's any legals that you want to store with the deal, or in this case, I've created, you just click into add folder, create an internal folder, you name it, and then you just hit this button, share with University of Essex. I've created an investor folder. I can now upload, for example, we had the Delio investor. I want that Delio investor to upload to confirm to specific documentation. I can click the upload button here. Second. Let me just upload a random document. Bear with me. And once I've actually uploaded the document, I can then request for a signature and so on. So here, now we've uploaded that completion document. I can rename it to be like, this is the investor specific for Delio Investor or Investor X. I can request a wet ink signature, or I can request an electronic signature as well. So that allows you to actually send across specific investor documents to specific investors. The documents you put into here won't be seen by all investors. They are completely confidential between you and University of Essex. And then if you want general documents to be released for investors to see, then you would just put them in the completion section here. I'm going to go back into the overview, see if there's anything else I missed. No, okay, so that hopefully shows you how the investor will interact and the different ways in which you can move investors across the investment pipeline. One of the things that we definitely encourage our clients to do on the platform is the actual deal information itself. It's so very important to actually flesh out your deal, give the investor the ability to actually go into specific tabs without the need of reading lengthy business decks and pitch decks and so on. And then adding a Q&A tab, adding a direct kind of link to your calendars to book meetings with you is another thing that we would definitely drill down on and advise you guys to use, because it essentially just allows the investor to communicate with you in an easier way. Hopefully that was super clear. The best thing to do is actually enable your entrepreneur account. If you haven't got one yet, then please do speak to the University of Essex team. Play around with the different functionality on the platform and ask as many questions as you can, and we should hopefully be able to answer them.
Thank you, Boomy. That was very concise. Yes, a couple of little questions which spring to mind as we're going on. When an entrepreneur actually makes that initial contact on the platform, does the entrepreneur, sorry, when the investor makes that initial contact on the platform, does the entrepreneur receive an email to let him know that that has actually taken place?
Sure. So they definitely get an on-platform notification, but I will just double check if they do actually get an email. I think they definitely also get documents have been released to your investors email, but I will double check that again, and then you can just let the rest of the network know.
Yes, because certainly from the administrative side, from our side, we actually get a notification that an entrepreneur has expressed an interest or favorited an opportunity on the platform. And we like to be able to be sure that the entrepreneurs are acting swiftly. So if they haven't acted it on the same day, we will need to chase them. And because investors lose interest very quickly, they are impatient people for the most part. Can projects only be submitted by entrepreneurs from Essex or from anywhere in the UK? I can answer this one live. We are taking applications from all over the UK, not just Essex. We like dealing with Essex businesses for obvious reasons. We are the University of Essex, but we are providing support to businesses across the country. And when you look at the spread of businesses on our platform, you'll find a very reasonable spread. They're not all Essex based. But having said that, we are getting more and more Essex businesses coming our way, which we are encouraging because we do want to promote the Essex community and the Essex opportunities here. Any sample template documents, particularly for completion documentation? Now, that's an interesting question because every single opportunity on our platform is an individual opportunity. They are all different. And if we did provide template documents, such as a template pitch deck or template this, that, and the other, we run the risk of removing the individuality from the projects and making them all look the same. That said, I mean, say we do provide a template NDA document, for example, because that is something that people could readily get from the internet and from Google. But we do have one that we can provide upon the request. And it's up to the individual business to tailor it to suit their own needs. But most other documents, I would say, we do not provide templates for the very reason that we want you to actually do the work yourself. The service we provide is free. If we were providing a complete stock of everything, including pitch decks, we'd have to charge. And the going rate around the country is about £1,500. I'll just mention that. If you wish to pay £1,500, I'm sure we can come to some arrangement. The university is not averse to receiving funding from this kind of source. And yes, Anthony Silva has mentioned Seed Legals. And of course, we have an arrangement with Seed Legals that we have a special access to Seed Legals, which we can provide to you, so you can talk to Seed Legals directly. Seed Legals, if you aren't already aware, they've already done a webinar for us, which is pre-recorded and you can actually download on YouTube. But they provide support for young entrepreneurs setting out in business and provide a very comprehensive legal service, but also have a platform as well, which you can actually use, which we don't mind you using, but you do have to pay. I've mentioned that in passing.
I think I have one addition to kind of like the document system on the platform. I think it's kind of useful to know that it's not just purely for kind of investor documents or documents that you want to share with University of Essex. If there are any documents in general that you want to store against your deal, such as kind of like, you know, you want your first draft of a pitch deck and you want that to be stored, and you can actually use it as your own data room as well. So as long as you've got your opportunity on there and you've got some documents in there, if the deal isn't even published, then you can still use that section to kind of upload your documents that you would do so in other systems and so on.
Thank you. Another thing I'd like to emphasize is Bhumi mentioned this and made a good point, that by having your pitch deck, that's great, but you can also upload sections of your pitch deck and keep them separate. So you can have the entire pitch deck that someone can view in its entirety, but you can also take out sections like the team section and hold a copy of the team section in a separate compartment under Teams. The same as images. Often we find that pitch decks are too large to load onto the platform. Anything above about 11 megabytes is not really uploadable. And you've got to remember that not everybody is going to be viewing this from a wonderful desktop with a 26-inch screen and so forth with perfect internet. They might very well be doing it from their mobile device. And whilst the platform works really well on a mobile device, I've used it, it works very well. In fact, it works quicker on a mobile device, I hasten to add, but the screen is a hell of a lot smaller. So therefore, you would do well to actually break up your pitch deck into bite-sized chunks so that people can view it separately. That way, an investor can actually speedily go through the sections that interest them first. And everybody's different. So some investors might want to look at your financial tables and your forecasts and that sort of thing in more detail, which means that you can put it in more detail. It's not in the pitch deck. You've just got the summary there. And I think people miss that point, that yes, you can have information overload. You can provide too much, but really you need to provide enough to whet the appetite of the investor and to keep the investor's interest moving forward. And that brings me on to making appointments, because not everybody wants to use the internet all the time. Some people just like to make that appointment straight away and get it in their diaries. And this is where the new feature of booking an appointment is so important, because if you use something like Calendly, and that seems to work very well with the platform, that's a great opportunity for an investor to actually book an appointment with you straight away. And doesn't that make a difference? Whilst we've been on this webinar, someone's actually made an appointment with me straight away. And I think that's really, really useful, because that actually means that you can be doing other things and still actually keep the interest. And that's what I keep coming back to, keeping the interest of the investor, because you've got to keep that investor. Because don't forget, there are other opportunities on the platform. who might have a better presentation than you. But if you respond quicker, you may very well get their money first.
Just one other thing that I didn't go into too much, but was actually the resource library. So as the entrepreneur, from your menu panel, you will actually be able to access the full resource library, and that has a full kind of webinar, not only just on kind of how to set up your deal, but and what tabs to include, and the best idealistic deal. All of that information is on the previous webinar, but it also has webinars of the full series that University of Essex have running, as well as more details about partners and sponsors and so on as well. So that can also be accessed through your platform.
And I do believe that as an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur myself many times, seeking investment is quite a lengthy process. You normally expect to in most cases, you expect to see 6 to 9 months to actually get investment funding. Yes, you hear wonderful stories that people have got this investment funding in a matter of weeks, but that has been preceded by months, even years of planning and actually deciding of where you're going to target your investment. And this whole question of, do I know someone already who could possibly invest in this? Let us know. We're more than happy to bring on board new investors just for you. That's not an issue for us, not an issue at all. And we bring on investors. I mean, we had a new investor come on this morning. They come on every single week, and sometimes every single day. Sometimes it's difficult to keep up with them. The whole idea is to give the widest possible choice. We're very agnostic in the sectors that we are working with, which means that we have to encourage more investors from other areas, from other sectors. But just because, for example, we don't have any property developments on our platform, we have steered away from property because it's not innovative in this context. But we have got property investors coming on our platform looking to diversify. And I'm not surprised given the state of commercial property at the moment. We do need to be able to offer them some kind of opportunity which basically would spread their risk. And that's what it's all about. Most investors would like to spread their risk. That's why we see an awful lot of investors interested around about the £10,000 level, which might not seem enough money when you're asking for 300,000, but you only need a lead investor with about £10,000 investing in your business to be able to go to the co-angel fund to seek additional funding from the British Business Bank. So remember, there's lots and lots of different avenues that you can take to raise that funding that you're looking for. And we've been very successful with some of our opportunities raising funding from seed legals, which is another great place to go and get funding if you're not too interested in the type of investor. I will say that when you get your Series A, you will have a lot more work to do, and it will cost you a lot more money to sort out the paperwork and the legal paperwork, which is where seed legals come in very handy at that point in time. So going back to the investor and the entrepreneur relationship, what we've seen today is you put on your opportunity. We are here to help you with that. You are not alone in that process. We do stipulate that you have a minimum of a pitch deck, but that is the absolute bare minimum. You will be much better by adding additional documentation, whether it's sections of the pitch deck broken up or additional information to support the pitch deck. That will be much better for the investor. We do believe that having videos, if you can make them, we do believe having images, we do believe having a team section with much more information about the team that's going to deliver, even if that includes the job roles that you're looking to fill going forward, to impress the investor that you know what you are working into. And we do believe that booking appointments using something like Calendly, anything to speed the process up, anything to make it easier for the investor to talk to you. Reacting to the investor quickly is highly important. It's no point leaving it for 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, a month. How long do you leave it? They lose interest. Most investors are inundated with offers. The very fact they're using our platform means that they're interested in what we are putting on that platform. So they're interested in what you're doing. So there's already a warm lead if you look at it from that context. Then dealing with that investor, reacting to them, talking to them, discussing with them, and answering their questions as they go along. Any help you need in that process, please just ask. That's what we're here for. The service is free, but that doesn't mean to say you can't use it and abuse it in that respect. And we would rather you asked than missed an opportunity. Once the investor has actually contacted you and you have started those negotiations, record it on the platform, because the more you record on the platform, the more we can help you and keep abreast of the situation. We're not there to intervene, only when asked. If we do intervene, it's because we can see something's going in the wrong direction. And when I say the wrong direction, you need investment and the investor needs opportunities. If it's straying into other paths, then we may very well intervene. But that's what we're here to do. We're not here to do the negotiation. We're not here to tell you what to do. It's your business after all. But we are there to help and mentor and advise through that process. And once you are successful, we want you there for the rest of the journey. We like to keep the opportunities resident on the platform, but closed, because we like to keep our other investors informed about the opportunities they missed, because that's a good indication of what's available in the marketplace. Well, it goes without saying that, you know, since our launch last May, and yes, it's less than a year, we've raised 3.5 million on our platform for our opportunities. And the opportunities come and go, as you would expect them to do. And we have been very successful in helping our opportunities raise funding elsewhere as well, because we have a vast network that we can actually tap into, whether it's Delio Connect or whether it's Deal Share with other platforms. And bearing in mind, we make no money out of this. This is a service that is provided by the University of Essex and is entirely free. So please make use of that service and please stick with us for the journey. We're here for the journey. We're like a bus. You hop on for this part of the journey. You hop off when you get to your destination. And when you're ready for the next part of your journey, we'll welcome you back. You can contact us at our normal email address of UEZ, that's Uniform Echo Zebra, or University Enterprise Zone, if that's easier to remember, at essex.ac.uk. My name is John Stenhouse, been assisted by Josh Clark. We've been presentation by Bhumi Ladva from Delio. And thank you once again. And please use our platform. Thank you. Goodbye.